X, our sponsor. So if you want to go ahead and get a heads up on what coins you might want to get, or even doing a good a little DCA into your cryptocurrency, go to roundlyx.com. Let's go ahead and roll that intro. Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you again, RandomlyX, for making this happen. So we're going to play a game today. We're going to bring Nick in. We're going to play Hashrate. We're going to learn how Hashrate is a security by playing a game. It's going to be lots of fun. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring up like the little pictures. We have pictures to help you explain all this. And in the description of the video, if you're on YouTube or something like that, there will be a link to an IPFS folder where you can download all this, and including the little booklet that comes with it, so that way you know exactly how you're playing. So all you need is some dice, a bag, and something to write with. You see on there, I got a phone or even paper. Don't matter, either one of those. So you'll just...
We lost the sound or the connection, but I think it will be good in a moment or so. If it doesn't work, you can sign back in, Douglas. I think I lost you at the moment. The connection. So stick with us, people, because it will be a lot of fun. We'll throw some dice and explain how Hashrate works. And I'll probably learn a lot too along the way. There we go.
Sorry, I don't know why I just lost internet randomly.
No problem. Wait, I'll throw my cat off.
All right, but yeah, I hate it when that happens. All right, so you'll the pictures.
Yes. Yeah. There we go.
Awesome. Yeah. So you just need one or more players. So you can play this by yourself. This can be done like solitaire, which is kind of cool. And you can even play it over years, which is even more neat. But you'll need 2 or more die. So that's the awesome thing. It don't matter what side. It don't matter how many. And one of the tricks to this is not telling other people how many die you have. So if you're playing like in person, you won't tell them how many die you put in the bag. Everybody puts dies in the bag. So you have a big bag. We can put all the die in. People just go in and grab a handful. And then, of course, something to track your rolls on. Now, I do put in there an optional timer because there is a little bit of a time thing. But that's up to the players if they want to use that. So let's go ahead and go to the next one where we can view like the actual items. The next part.
Is that this one? Oh, that is additional.
It should say like no turns. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is how you basically play around. You're going to put all the die in the bag. You shake the bag. You grab a handful out of the bag. And then basically you have to have 2 pairs. You have to have pairs of die. So if you have like an extra die that has no pair, you either put it back, set it up to the side so someone else can take it if they also have the same problem. And basically there are no turns. There's no going left, no going right. Everyone just kind of goes at the same time. So the ideal behind that is if one player is able to roll their die a bunch of times before someone else can roll their die as well, then they can basically be like an ASIC. They can actually get more hash in until they can find their perfect roll and be like, okay, I want to be right there. And that is kind of the point here, is to try to get as many dice rolls in as you can before anyone else does as well. And so players roll their dice sets, right? And the second, there's 2 sets of players' dice on the field. So it's like if me and you are rolling and I roll like twice and then you roll twice and then we both roll the third time and we both have our dice roll on the field, we have to stop rolling and record results. So we only record the results that are on the field when it's time to record. So say you got 6 players and only 3 of them have dice down at that time. The other 3 can't roll now. They have to only record results. So who's rolling and who's recording is always going to differ, and everyone has the option to record every time if they choose. And then the round just basically ends after you record and you score everything up, which we'll go over how to score everything up in a second. And then one of the cool things is you check everyone's thing. So after the round, you go, okay, did you make sure everyone has the same role so you don't have anyone messing up? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to fake it, right? That's the ideal here, is you want the most points. So if you can put a dice roll in and no one else notices that, oh, that ain't supposed to be there, then you can get away with it. And so the ideal of everyone checking each other randomly, like after each roll or each round, is to prevent that. Well, that's kind of how the ledger works. It always talks to itself, talks to everybody. Everybody check every so often randomly. And so that's what we're going to mimic there. And
the next slide.
Yeah, the next slide. That's the one with like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are just basic rule sets for the game. Like all players play at the same time. No turns. Sometimes it's best said differently. Players have even number of dice to roll. So you always need like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, something in that manner. The biggest number rolled per player is not counted. So if like we roll a bunch of dice and one of the dice lands on a 20, all the 20 dice is not counted. And it's considered, and when we show up how to do tallies, it'll make a point there. Like it'll make sense there why. So anyone rolling or not rolling, they may record dice rolls. They don't have to. They're allowed to. So once 2-player rolls on the field, that's when it ends. Like the rolling ends, and everyone kind of tries to start recording. Now the ideal is you want to try to record everyone wants to try to record within about a minute. That's why you have the optional timer. If that starts taking too long, you grab out a timer. Boom, okay, timer, and then you can start rolling. And the cool thing is everyone can have a different timer. They don't even have to be the same. They don't have the same time. If the third one of the players in wants to only roll every 3 minutes, they have that option. If you want to roll every minute, you have that option. And then the counted die is actually your security number. So when we count the die up, we'll show you how that actually works. So the next one is the example roll.
Yes.
So
there we go.
All right. So as we see here, we got a 12, a 20, a 9, and a 6. So the 20 is the one that's not counted. And if you look, we just basically put the number that is counted, and in bracket, we put the number that isn't counted. And how you actually put that down on your paper is all up to you. It can be in any way, shape, or form you want, as long as you know what dice was counted and what individual dice wasn't counted. And then if we look, we're adding up the numbers of counted die, 12, 9, 6, which is 27. And then we subtract the uncounted die from that number, which is kind of like a difficulty. And then now we have the answer total is 7 for that roll. And then we can see there's an example down below where it's like 12, 9, 6, and then in bracket just 20. And so that lets us know our roll total. So the next one is the hash rate. So we can actually explain how that equals a hash rate. So basically, like the total number of 2 die rolled is equivalent to like 1 hash rate. And then the player that re-rolls multiple times has more chances to get a winning roll, but re-rolling increases the hash, like the round hash rate. So if I roll 12 times, you roll 3 times, you have a total of 15 of the hash rate. So what we do is your roll total is subtract the hash rate from it, and that's your user total. So the ideal here is you want to get a total above the round hash rate. That's your actual difficulty. If you can't get above that, well, you're not going to be able to get counted unless you have the least negative number. So the ideal here is we can make it a lot more difficult for each other by rolling multiple times, or we can make it as easy for each other by not rolling as multiple times. Now, the hash rate stays the same for 6 rounds in a row. So if we have like 2 hash rate, for me and you, like for example, if we start playing, we have 2 hash rate, 6 rounds in a row. Well, that means the next hash rate will actually be reduced in half. So if it's 2, it'll be 1 next round. And then if we keep it a 1 6 in a row, it will go down to 0. So the ideal is every 6 in a row where the hash rate stays the same, you reduce the hash rate. Once the hash rate hits 0, the game ends. The game is no longer a game. You're done. We figure out who wins. So the next one is the actual game end. So when, like for example, there are no new amount of like 2 consecutive rounds, the game ends. So in other words, if we're playing and then we get sidetracked with like trying to see who had what on their score or something too long, and well, we could actually end the game. And at the same time, like if no players are rolling whatsoever, we know it's not going to be happening. Also, if it hash rate hits 0, game in. So those are your 3 scenarios. Absolutely nobody is actually rolling for a long period of time. No one can agree on the answers of whatever one has, or hash rate is 0. So 3 ways the game can end. And then you basically just completely compare. Okay, now we compare everybody's results, make sure no one is bluffing, you know. And then the person with the highest total actually wins. So when you go through and you have the remember the hash rate subtracted, you go, okay, that's my total. Now, per round when we're playing, there is the point where you have whoever wins that round, the hash rate is how much they get from it. So that's a good thing to remember. So your data syncing, as you can see here, data sync can be called by players and watchers at any time. So at any point in time, someone can just like, we need to sync data. And you can sync data. Even in your middle of rolling, you can sync data. And syncing is just correcting incorrect roll totals. So it's not even, so like say for example, I don't have all the roll totals down, but you do. If mine's not incorrect, I don't have to fix it. I only have to take out stuff that's not supposed to be there. So we don't actually have to have all the exact same data. We just have to make sure the data we do have is correctly equal. As in, like if I only have 2 digits but you have 3, my 2 digits have to be 2 of your 2 digits.
Understand? Yeah.
And as odd as it is, that's actually how the Bitcoin system works. Like anybody can prune their node data at any time. So it's not a matter of all the data. It's a matter of is the data we have equal. So incorrect data is data that is like the best way to put it. If 76% of the people have the same data, but less than 76% of the people don't, that's bad data. That's how we consider what is incorrect. And for that example, I have like it's basically 2/3 of the just a little over 2/3. So if you have like 3 people, 2 of you have the same data, one person has something different. That one person has to adjust because he's the minority of the group. So syncing is also done after 3 consecutive rounds. Well, it's recommended to be done there. You don't actually have to do it then. And then data syncing calls, again, they're called out loud. So if you guys are playing in a group, you don't want to just sit there and be like, oh, I need a data sync. You got to go, hey, data sync. You gotta make it loud and clear. Because even on the Bitcoin blockchain, if a node or whatever is thinking, hey, we need to sync data, it basically does an announcement of data sync and syncs data with other nodes around it. So that's kind of how it works, and that's kind of the point of this game, is to show you how all this works. So the next one is the modes, and that's just going to be really fun. So basically, we have 3 main modes in the way to play. The easy mode is just you only count the highest roll. I mean, that's it. You only count the highest roll. You don't count anything else. Normal mode is where you just kind of do what we just kind of explained. And again, the rewards cut half every time you have the hash rate the same for 6 in a row. Whereas in easy mode, that doesn't happen at all. You just end the game when you're ready to end the game on easy mode. And then difficult mode, the hash rate always drops in half every round. So what you do is you guys choose a hash rate. Oh, we want a hash rate of 27. So then you guys got to roll that 27 real fast. And then from that point on, it goes down one step. And that's kind of the fun part about difficulty mode is like if you have a big group of people, that's really fun because you can get the hash rate up real high. And then it's just every round you take one out. You no longer, the hash rate of the players no longer matters. So normal mode is actually how the Bitcoin blockchain works. It's actually how a lot of the proof of work works. And then easy mode is kind of more like how proof of stake works. And then difficult mode is just like a fun mode I made up because I thought it'd be fun to have. And then I just put the game in again there at the end because I'm sure some people might just use that one page to because it's a lot of basic rules right there. And then the very last one is just like showing some dice rollers people can use. So it's just QRs with dice rollers. I recommend Roll-A-Die because it's customizable. It's really neat. But I also have on there, the calculator.net, which has a dice roller on it, as fun as that is. And then the D&D official dice roller that like most of the D&D players use. So a lot of D&D players they're gonna be like, oh wait, I can use my dice for yet another game because I don't know. Like there's Dungeons and Dragons. There's also Dragon Dice. Like that was a fun game when I was a kid. And then now Hashrate. Welcome to the fun club. But that is the rules. It's quite simple when you look at it, right? Is there anything you have questions for, bro?
I always learn the fastest by doing it, but it's a lot of rules and it's kind of abstract. And just let's get to it, right? And
Right.
I got my 6 die of 20 sides ready.
All right. So one thing I like about dice rolls, you see, like you can add as many dice as you want. You can change the side of the die, and then when you're ready, you just hit roll, and it will roll, and then it tells you your total, so you don't have to guess. So as you can see, I also have a little notepad up here. Like I know you have one, I have one. So I've already rolled one, and now I've rolled two. So basically 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're at 16. You're gonna roll 2, or let me know when you have a roll.
So I write down the total, right?
Yep, write down your total, and then you're gonna subtract. Well, you're gonna subtract the highest die from your total because on here it does not do that for you, as you can see.
And the highest you don't count.
Yeah, we don't count the highest. So whatever the highest is, don't count that one, and then we subtract the highest as well.
Okay, I got one roll.
All right, and our hash rate is 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16.
Yeah, I just rolled the second one.
Oh. All right, I got another one on the field too.
Let's see what.
17.
Minus 12. 33. Yeah. My third row.
Yeah.
Should I also record them, or I mean like the counting, or just the total?
It's up to you, bro. You can record as much data as you want or as little data as you want. That's the beauty of this. Like, so if you have some people who don't really want to record everything, they don't have to. Like me, I'm just recording my total and my top roll, and then subtracting my top roll from my total as I'm like doing it. So, and then I get my what my number actually is, and then my hash rate. Because after this one right here, we have to do a data sync. Or I'm gonna say data sync. We got a data sync. Actually, it probably would be a good time anyways.
Okay. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so what was your first one?
My first one was 8 after subtracting the highest number,
8.
which was
Gotcha.
11. And yours?
Mine. So mine was 26 with 20. My total was 6 though. So you won that one, and you
Right.
got 16 points. That would have been the equivalent of saying you got 16 Bitcoin right now.
Because it's times 2. The 8 is times 2. Or
No, it's the 8 is bigger than 6.
yeah, but why is it 16?
That was the hash rate. That we have
Ah,
altogether the number die you have, number die I have is a hash rate of 16. Because
okay.
I rolled like 2 times each time so far. So I have had 2 dice rolls in there. Every time you said what, I've had 2.
I understand.
So what was
So
your second one?
my second one was 33 after subtracting the highest number.
What's your highest number?
My highest number was 12.
And you're getting good rolls, bro. Good rolls. My second one, I had my highest number was 17, which I got 45. So my total was 28. And hash rate again was 16. Again, you win, bro. You got that one again. You got the Bitcoin on that one.
So that's another 16 points.
Yep.
Okay, well, my highest was, by the way, I got 45 minus 12.
All right. And your total was 45?
Yeah, so the total 45 was not counting the 12. Or should I also count the 12 and then subtract the 12? Because then it was even higher, right?
Yeah. You would have had to subtract the 12 from the total it gave you, and then again to get your thing. I had to do the same thing.
Yeah. So the 12 you don't count, but you do subtract it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Check. That I'm doing it right. Okay, and the last one, because I rolled 3 times, was 25.
What was your highest roll?
My highest roll was 17. So I subtracted 17 from 42.
Nice. All right. So my last roll, I had my highest was 15. My total was 45 from it, and then my actual roll total was 20. So again, you've gotten that one. Actually, I have higher highs than you. All of mine are like 20, 17, 15.
Yeah, but that's a negative, right? Because you have to subtract those high numbers.
That's right. I have to subtract them. Yeah. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger.
So basically, I won 3 times in a row, and I got 3 times 16, right?
Yep. Now, if you notice on mine, I'm just putting like a little indicator mark of who won. So I don't even have to keep track of how many everybody has, but like since we're doing a data sync, I now have to keep track of what we both have. And I'm gonna have to get oh my gosh, bro, you got what was that? That's over 45. 48 for use. And I'm still at a good 0. But if we look at what we're doing, so I'm getting more dice rolls in, but we can only count my dice roll that's on the field when you tell me, hey, this is my roll, or I just rolled. So I was able to get the hash rate up real high, which betters you because you get more points. But me trying to hopefully get a better roll, I end up getting worse rolls. And just like in real life, just because someone gets an ASIG and they're rolling more times with their ASIG doesn't mean that they're going to get the actual block that time. So who actually wins is pure random. We're both randomly rolling dice. We are both randomly deciding where, whatever our highest is, that's random. So we can't ever trick the game. Even if we had trick die and we rolled the exact same thing each and every time, doesn't mean you'll win each and every time, because someone else could have a better output roll. And so the same thing with actual blockchains. And if you have someone purposely putting in the same block hash every couple of seconds, hoping that they can get that hash blocked, even if they have 51% of the total miners, doesn't mean they will get that block blocked. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because it's random.
Exactly. Now, at any point in time, I could have put in extra data. You could have put in extra data. And when you're playing this like in person with people, I think it's probably the best way to play it, because when you're playing in person, you can like really look and see what everybody's doing. It can go as much as like a drinking game or anything like that. Yeah, absolutely. And we can just have more fun with it. Now, when we play online, because you can still play online. We're playing online right now, right? There's
Mhm.
still other more ways we could have done this. Like, for example, if we were in like a Discord server, I believe there's actually a thing that you can get on your Discord that will roll dice. People can just be in there rolling dice publicly, you know. Um, and turning something like this into a Discord game would just be a few simple scripts. And I think all of the bots exist to do it. You just got to put them all in the same Discord server at the same time. Even I think Telegram even has a dice roller thing. So the number of ways that you can play with friends just are dramatic. Even just going down to as on a phone call with someone else and you guys are rolling physicals. Like I got physicals, so like I could have actually been doing this with physicals the whole time. Um, and there's no limit or how you play or how people want to play, and that's kind of how Bitcoin is. There's no limit to how you can get in, how you can get your hash in, how you can make that hash. It's all up to the player, and that's something that a lot of people have a hard time understanding. Well, if it's all up to the player, how do we have security? Well,
Yeah.
Broseph, you've secured uh, this entire game. You secured this entire blockchain right here just by having these good high outputs, by having pretty low high rolls, which means all your other ones are probably just like one digit below, which is good. That's actually a really good lucky roll. And that's kind of how the Bitcoin blockchain is, because we don't know who's actually going to make that. We don't know what everyone's going to roll is going to be at the end of the 10 minutes. We don't even know if it's going to be 10 minutes when we do a data sync. Like here, if someone was to not do a data sync for 3 rolls, wouldn't it be a problem? And then if someone's like, we're like 12 rolls in, you're like, oh, snap, we might want to sync data, bro. Then, like, then you sync data and everything. So it,
So if I had like 4 rolls in the time that you had 3 rolls, and you or me said sync, then I got basically more rolls than you, and we can sort of subtract one of those depending on which is the lowest, right? Or which is wait, correct me if I'm wrong.
the, so like when we're rolling, right?
Yeah.
Whatever dice is on the field at the time that you have two play, that's the only one that gets counted. So even though I rolled twice per, I only counted the last one that when you were like, okay, I rolled, and that was the only one I counted. Um, so like say we get all the different roll sets, uh, we're looking for the highest. We want to see who has the highest score. Um, and the person with the lowest score, nothing happens. Just like everyone else. Like if you don't get a block, nothing happens.
Okay, I get it. So basically, when it syncs, it matters what your role is, and when it doesn't sync, it doesn't matter. Or
Yeah, yeah. So say we were like me and you both had our screens on screen or whatever. And I was writing down each one of my dice roll, because that's something we could have done. Like we could have,
Mhm.
like I could have just been like, I have 2, 2, 10, 11, 3, 2, 5, and then 15, right? And so
Mhm.
that's the data sync when we're data syncing. And say you didn't do all this. Like for example, I actually didn't do all that. I just put down my total and the 15. So this was my actual roll. This was my total minus the 15, which is this one. And this
Mhm.
was my total minus the 15, right?
Mhm.
So say you were writing my dice rolls, but you only had that data. Well, we would just
Mm-hmm.
make sure your data and my data is at least equal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like here's my data, and then your data just did not have those ones in blue. So I would just make sure that you have a 2225, and you would make sure I have a 2225. Yeah, okay, and then we go on, and that's probably the beauty of playing it in person is um, you can bluff a little bit more. So there is this poker mentality where you could potentially win if you can bluff long enough and keep people from data syncing. Bless me, bro. Bless me.
Thank you.
Because imagine if you could convince your friends to not data sync for like 24 rolls and you've been bluffing the whole time, and then you get the hash rate down to zero within those 24 rolls. Well, now we only have to data sync one time, right? So you're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I'm going to win. So we data sync, and then we all go, oh, no, that's not there. That's not there. That's not there. And we can like point and poke at each other's rolls and say, no, this isn't on all of ours. So you have to get rid of that one. And then now at the end of the last and only data sync, you might not win. And that's actually how the miner system works too, because people think 51% is all you need. And even if you have 51% of the physical miners, you might not get the block, and you might not be able to reverse a block. Like there's a lot of people that go, if the miners, 51% of the miners say the winning block was block ABC, but the actual winning block is DEF, then
Mm-hmm.
it will change. But we've actually had in the past where that has happened. 51% of the miners said block was ABC, but all the other miners said no, block was DEF. And the total hash rate the other miners had was more than 51% of the 51% total miners, keeping the block DEC. And so this is the same thing here. Even if we do a data sync, like you didn't show me all of your roles and I didn't show you all of my roles, we could have been like, no, bro, I need to know what your second, all of your roles on your second one was. I'm like, oh, come on, let's get them in here, and we could have gone through that. So, but even by playing with yourself, say you rolled one die every day and you wrote it down, you know,
Mm-hmm.
your difficulty never changes. So you'd probably want to play on easy mode where difficulty don't matter. But what you're really doing there is you're kind of just competing with your previous roll. So as we see here, you have a 25 winning roll and a 33 winning roll. So
Mm-hmm.
if you were playing by yourself, this second day would have been a non-countable. You wouldn't have won that day. You would have been like, I didn't win because it's not bigger than my previous day. And if we just go for the same fact of me, I had the exact same issue. You notice I got a 20 after a 28. So I wouldn't have won the second day and I would have won the first day. And this is just like the more you do this, the more you understand how the proof of work really secures your system because of randomization. And this is the best way to prove randomization, dice. I think dice is the what people used to say is the original RNG with everything. And I mean, believe it or not, this is pretty much the game. Do we want to keep rolling, or do we want to just go ahead and say we're good?
I think we're good, but it's very interesting. And then what if you have a successful 51 attack? It's just one block, right? That they sort of
Yeah, they
steal.
would have only won one time, so they would have only got those extra points that one time or whatever. And it's totally possible that even when we're giving out data syncs, I don't have to actually show you my page. I can hide it and just tell you the data. Um, and if you can get that win in, you can get that win in, because at the end of the day, when we're like done, these are the totals that determine who actually won the game. Like for example, you have 48, you just won the game, bro. Like
Mhm.
congratulations for one. That's what's up. And then when you guys are playing, you guys can do whatever you want with winners. So for example, you could say, okay, winner can't play this round, or you could be like, winner can only record this round, or you can be like, all right, bro, you won, so you gotta, everyone else will pitch in and buy the round this time at the bar, or whatever you want. Like it doesn't even have to actually matter in anything. Like if I was to play this with my kids, I would be like, okay, whoever had the lowest score, they got to do the dishes after supper tonight. Something like that.
Yeah.
So this could be as used for quite a few different things. If you guys are like, who gets front seat in the car today, or who gets da 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 da. You guys can actually play a quick round of hash rate, and it's okay. You won. You get either get to determine it, or you are the person that makes it. Uh,
That's a lot of fun. So it's a fun game, and it's also very you learn a lot from it. And we'll also put all the links down below. But let's say you got a successful 51 attack, and that allows them to sort of win that round or that block. So they get the reward, right? That's basically what
yep.
they get.
Yeah.
But how does it relate to the double spend problem?
So in this case, it doesn't actually relate to the double spin problem, like how we're actually playing the game. Um, Now, if we were saying, okay, at the end of the game, we keep adding our scores together over time, there's a chance someone could try to reuse their same total wins. So they could try to reuse the same block. And so, say, for example, you said, oh, bro, I don't have just that 33. I had that 33 twice in a row, you know, and I'll just like change my score up a little bit just to add in some difference. And I'd be like, oh man, you won 33 twice in a row, bro. So then at this point, like notice I was getting your highest roll. If I saw you had the highest roll and the 33, I would be like, okay, no, I need to know what your actual total was, or we can't count the block. And if we can't count the block, it just goes away. And on a double spin, it is the same concept. If it is not a consensus where enough, you don't have 76% of everybody going, yeah, you can spend that, then it just doesn't happen. It just stays in the meme pool forever until later, maybe even later on in the future, the blockchain decides, yeah, actually, you can spend that. And we have seen that in Bitcoin where two transactions went out for the same output but different input. So it was going to the same place, but it came from a different location. So everything else was the same. It was on the same block. So the blockchain said the first one, well, one of them did not go through. It went back in the meme pool, and the other one got accepted. And then, like a year later, the other one got accepted. And then there was once where we had someone double spend. They did a double spin during a fork of the blockchain, and Coinbase accepted one of the transactions, and the actual rest of the blockchain accepted the other transaction, and it was a $7 double spend. That was it, $7. And it probably cost that person hundreds of dollars to perform that double spin in fees. So what they ended up doing was, because the fees on the one that Coinbase accepted was super high, Coinbase was like, bro, we're going to take it. Let's do it. And they put it into their blockchain network information. While all the other miners in the world, all the other miners, I have to make that very clear, other than Coinbase's miners, every other miner in the world said, that is not the transaction we accepted. We accepted the one for the lower rate because of the time that it happened. That was when basically when you have two competing scenarios like that, they both were in the same block, same time, two different totals for transaction spend, and they were spending to two different locations, but from the same person. Um, they accepted, you just kind of randomly accept one. And when 76% of the miners say, yeah, we all accepted the one on the right side, that's the one that gets used. But individual miners can still try to accept the one on the left side without breaking the blockchain. And for example, Coinbase, because the way Coinbase works is they will send out internal transactions, or and within on their own database, they sent out that transaction before it had six confirmations. So when the rest of the blockchain said, nah, bro, that's not a spin, Coinbase was like, I already let them spend it, bro. So we actually, a lot of people blame Coinbase for that double spin, because the double spin only exists if you look at Coinbase's data. If you look at all the other blockchain data, it does not even exist. So double spins can happen for so many different reasons. But in the actual, when you go, if you was to just like load up a node and sync to the blockchain, you wouldn't have that Coinbase transaction unless you sync to Coinbase. And to be honest, Coinbase has a good number of miners, but they only have like a small percentage of the total miners. And it's actually really difficult to actually sync up to one of their miners. So most likely you'll never see that transaction. But if you use block explorers, you can find the transaction. So it's kind of odd how that works. Like block explorers can be really confusing for people. Like I've got lots of fights with people on Twitter where they're like, "I saw this $7 double spin, bro," and I go through my node information personally. They send me the transaction hash. I go through my node information, and I'm like, I don't see it. And then I go to a block explorer, and I can see it because Coinbase gives APIs for block explorers, so they tend to have their data in almost all the block explorers too. So just because, like, for example, remember that earlier I was like that 33 double spin, like yours still says that you have that win, and everyone else won't say that. So everyone else will have a different total for you, but you'll have a completely different total too. You'll be at like like that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, you will think you have won, and everybody else will go, "No, you didn't." And the point of something like that is like this teaches you to then figure out how to confront these scenarios. And nowadays, a lot of people in the world, they don't seem to know how to confront unusual scenarios like, "Hey, your information doesn't sync up to my information." And so this could actually be a really learning experience for especially younger people who are unsure how to debate things or unsure how to get their point across. And this can really help them. Um, and I just like the idea of this game. It's fun. It's simple and easy.
And it's also, the slogan, don't trust but verify, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. This playing this with a bunch of people and you guys are getting drunk, you'll learn to never trust ever again. The second you start getting a little tipsy, you forget the data sync.
But that's basically the problem with every game, especially board games that you play, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it it quickly shows that people are not that trustworthy, even if you play with friends or people that you think you can trust. People, if they think they can get away with it, they often do, right?
Absolutely. I have played Monopoly games that lasted a week, and
Or
I would take picture, like I would take a Polaroid and take a picture so I would remember what everything was when I come back.
yeah, the famous toilet breaks, right? That's yeah. Now, and
Absolutely.
for example, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but with the CBDC, it's a central controlled cryptocurrency, right? So it's like everything that crypto shouldn't be, that is a CBDC. But I think you can best compare it not with a computer game, but with a board game, right? And you're playing this
Absolutely. Yeah.
board game with each other, and you got one person who's the bank, who's access to the money, right? And then the
Yeah.
people at the table have to trust the person that is the bank, that they won't cheat, even though they can, right?
Yeah. So we can play this as a CBDC. You let one person handle the score sheet and all of everybody's rolls. And they get to tell everybody what they rolled. And they can then at that point write it down. But it won't matter because the person who has this main score sheet and the rolls, they actually are the deciding factor. So that is how you can play a CDB. This in the same fashion of a centralized bank digital currency is, okay, you guy over there, you're going to do all the rolls and you're going to do all the points. Or, he's just sitting there writing points down and slowly telling you. So, and you can't verify the data either. There's no way to actually verify. Even if like CBDCs are public,
Yeah.
like their ledgers are public, what ledger they show you doesn't equal to what is actually happening. Like they don't have to show you all transactions. They don't have to show you all outputs or inputs. They only have to show you data they choose to show you. And I know a lot of places they go, well, this is going to help create transparency and this and that. And the problem is though, we can automate systems to perform actions before it goes to their ledger.
Yeah.
And we have seen altcoins where there were I think a better example is NFTs like CryptoPunks. There was a CryptoPunk taken out of somebody's wallet, but unless you were actually paying attention to that person who was originally holding that CryptoPunk's wallet, you would have never noticed it. And that CryptoPunk was actually rebought as a brand new, fresh CryptoPunk. And it took like 3 years before the person who actually owned that CryptoPunk to notice my CryptoPunk is gone. It took them 3 years to
Wow.
figure it out.
Wow.
And so, if we were on a digital, like a CBDC or something like that, he would have never been able to even verify he did own it. It would have just been removed completely from his entire ledger. What he sees would have just gone, and it could have. And that was that CryptoPunk pool was automated through the contract. Like basically, someone that had power of the contract was able to perform that, and that's how a CBDC is going to be doing. They are doing all the actions, even if they're automated. They are doing all the actions, and it gets really scary really fast because it's like, in America, we already have problems where people randomly lose banking accounts. People randomly lose money at their banking accounts. And even if we go to like the El Salvador Bitcoin Lightning Network wallet, it is unbelievably unverifiable. So something that we found out really quickly is they were sending out free money to everybody that signed up for it, especially if you lived in, like it's supposed to be for people that live there. And there were a lot of people that got it. They got the funds. They could see it in their wallet. But then when they tried to use it on the actual Lightning Network, the Lightning Network was like, you have no funds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are a few other wallets that have that same problem with Lightning Network. So it does happen. But how many times have you gone into a website and your browser go, oh, there ain't nothing there, and then 5 seconds later it shows you something?
Yeah. Yeah, so that basically that's not even scarier, because then you think you got something while you actually don't, right? So you can think like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally secure or totally loaded or whatever, and then when you have to use it, it isn't there.
Yeah. I've actually had that problem where my my check from work went to the bank, and I was like not thinking anything of it. Then like a day or two later, I went to go get some gas, and I had no money in the bank.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the bank, I had no bank account, and it was just like, when did this happen? The second I got paid. Um, but that's really how CBDCs work, though. Like they work exactly like a bank does. And the problem is, a lot of people in other countries outside of America, there's a lot of countries that have laws that say people have to have banks, people have to have access to banking. But in America, you don't have that law. So in America, we are a lot more people get used to the ideal of they can lose everything at any point in time for any reason, even no reason. But other countries, they're not used to it. And so, like, I'm afraid that people in other countries who have trust in banks, they're really going to be pushing for CBDCs. And really, all we have to do is look at China. China has had a CBDC since like 2016, and they have funds that will delete themselves. And they don't actually delete themselves, they just pull themselves out of your wallet if you don't use it in a certain length of time. They have funds that can be frozen on the fly. So it's not your bank account. It's a transaction or an amount of funds that can just randomly be frozen, and that has happened. Like right now, if you're in China and your COVID score goes too low, they don't freeze your account. They just freeze the money. You can still get money, you can't use it. And things like this, like the ways they can manipulate, it just increases, and the amount of scariness that really can't exist increases.
Yeah, and I think that's why I compare it to a board game and not with a computer game, because with the computer game, the rules are sort of fixed, right? Nobody has any purpose or benefit from sort of changing those rules. But with a board game, the player who's actually cheating is also part of the game, right? And the central bank is definitely part of the game, right? So they have a stake in it. And if
Oh
somebody
yeah.
has a stake in it, they, if they can manipulate it, they will eventually or immediately.
Yeah. I think Monopoly is most known for people where the person who is the bank tends to cheat.
Yeah.
Um, but if we also go to like Grand Theft Auto Online, that video game, it is extremely well known for hacking, where people go in and they hack to give themselves tons of money. They hack to give themselves tons of weird objects, like they got like motorcycles that fly and stuff. And so they'll give that stuff to them, right? Just to give them an advantage over other players. There's even some players who can do a God mode where you cannot kill them. You can shoot them all day with anything and they will not die. And the only reason why they do it, though, is to cause mayhem. They don't do it because they're winning at the game. At that point, they can just win the game by giving themselves unlimited money. That doesn't no longer matter. So when we have these systems, even automated systems like a video game, the people who are going to cheat are not going to cheat to win. They're normally going to cheat for some other reason, and that includes the bank. A lot of times, if a CBDC bank, the bank that controls that CBDC, is going to cheat, they're not going to cheat because they want to make extra money or they want to have extra money. They're only going to cheat because it's going to hurt someone. And either it's like, oh, well, they don't care. It could even be a random toss of the coin of who gets affected that day by something. And they don't have to have a reason, which is the scary part. It's like, like on a board game, you're cheating to win, right?
Yeah.
But with digital currencies, with NFTs, with all this digitalization, you don't have to cheat to win. Most people just cheat to cheat. Either they get enjoyment out of physically cheating, or, like, for example, if a bank really wants to cheat, like this is a good one. Banks are only allowed so much credit a day, right? Bank has a CBDC that could have a limit that can be outside of their control. Like a government can actually control how much a CBDC can issue that day or transact that day. And then the bank can go, okay, well, we have more transactions than we're allowed. So we need to not allow the lowest transactions so the people who have the most money with us will keep the most trust with us. Now,
Yeah.
they're literally cheating so other people can win, not even for themselves to win, only so other people can win. So that way, the bank just wins the long game versus the short game. Like when we were doing this, remember I said if we dropped it into the block, you could win that short win, and then when we data sync, you might not win the long game. Well, CBDC, if they're going to cheat for any real reason outside of just because, it's going to be a long game. It's going to be a long game play, and it might take years to show forth. Like when China started doing the face scan for people's bank accounts, originally it was just like not everybody had a phone. So this made it easier where the people who were allowing you to buy stuff just had to have the phone. Cool.
Yeah.
But then what it turned into is they found out, oh, well, China actually was collecting all of their data and creating profiles on other data so they could track them through cameras. And then what happened immediately after that? They put up hundreds of thousands, or I think it was hundreds of thousands of cameras or thousands of cameras within a year. Just tons of cameras. They had the most cameras in any other country. And so what seemed like a gift, oh, you don't have to have a phone to use our CBDC. Just the person you're buying from has to have it. And then now it's, well, now we actually can see everywhere you go physically without your permission. And
Yeah.
that's the long game for them.
Yeah, and basically it's the same thing with the fiat system, right? Because when it gets started, or when a new game gets started, when a new fiat is launched, at first it doesn't show where it eventually ends. But at the end, it always ends with player playing the long game, right? The central bank takes control of the whole system because the debt keeps rising, and they have to steal more and more of your money to keep the system going, and that centralizes their power eventually, right? It takes control of the whole system eventually.
Absolutely. Yep. And that is one of those playing the short game over and over to get that long game win. Absolutely.
Yeah, and basically this game that we just played is we're playing the nodes, right? The nodes in the network, because some people think like if I take custody of my Bitcoin, that is really good, and it is really good, right? But you also have to run a node to sort of check the network, right?
Yeah, well, we're both doing nodes and miners. So our score sheets are the nodes, and
Mm.
the actual game is the miners. Because if you don't have a miner, there's no guarantee your transactions will happen. That's the importance of mining. That's the importance of everybody mining. So anybody, if you have Bitcoin, you should be mining to ensure that when you try to use your Bitcoin, you may be able to.
Okay, so basically you have to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. That's step number one. Step number two is run a node, and the step number three is start mining, or all at the same
Yep.
time.
Yep, absolutely. And when people think mining, they always think, "Oh, I need a big miner. I need an ASIC." No, a Raspberry Pi 3 and 4 can mine Bitcoin. Cell phones can mine Bitcoin. Uh, PlayStations can mine Bitcoin. Mining Bitcoin doesn't mean you have to get a block. That's the beauty of it. Like, I can be mining Bitcoin and never get a block, but because I'm adding into the hash rate, I'm helping make sure it's at least secure, even if I
Mm,
don't get a block. And then when I send a transaction and it doesn't get blocked, that's when I hope to get a block in order to force my transaction on the blockchain. So that's why when we play hash rate, some people might be rolling a bunch of times, and in their mind they're thinking, I want that perfect roll, I want the highest score, I want the whatever. Like me, I did two per. I clicked the button twice just because I knew it would increase the hash rate. And I know if the hash rate's higher, the chances of one of us faking data is going to be harder, because just because you fake data doesn't mean you'll win with that data.
true, true. And then you got these really nice setups that you can even generate heat while mining Bitcoin, and a lot of other stuff, right, coming along.
Yeah, well, actually, tons of people have been doing this for a long time where they'll have ASIGs, like a small ASIG, because in some areas where I live, getting an ASIC miner is cheaper than buying a really good like room heater, a heater for a good sized room. But what you can do is you can have fans on the miner, and you can have pipes with water in it right next to where the heat sink and stuff is at. So the fans are pushing air across them, but the pipes are basically extracting the heat from them and moving it away because you got the pipes with the water flowing. So much how a water cooled PC works, there is such thing as water heated room. Something that we used to see a long time ago, where you would have, if you had a hot water pump in the uh, top of your house. Actually, it's the attic of your house. Some places they'll run the pipes down and then across the floor. So when hot water runs down there, it heats the floor. Just like even older houses that would have a chimney, and you had a 2-story house, chimney would be on one side and it would go up and across the bottom floor of the top story and then up to heat that floor. And
Yeah.
we basically do the same thing with these. And I've even seen people, they have a way of doing submergent mining where you can submerge it into a liquid. It's not exactly water. And then that submergent, you can actually use that water. It heats up that liquid. And then you run that liquid through the pipes, and you can heat up an area. You can heat up a house. So you can actually run the pipes behind your walls and heat up the house from the walls towards you. And it's also a really great thermal layer. Like, as odd as it sounds, like in America, they like to put concrete bricks between the outside wall and the inside wall, so that as the
Mm,
outside wall gets hot, it takes longer for that heat to go into the inside. Well, if you have these all these thermal pipes with these running liquid, it's going to perform the same action. And in the summer, you might be a little bit more hot in that room, but it's to disconnect the system. It's simple as moving your miner. A lot of times they don't actually directly connected to the miner, so you can just like literally move the miner out of that spot. All that pipe can stay there, right?
yeah.
And then you put the miner in a different spot. And now those pipes are not heating up the house, but they're still performing that thermal layer where, because there's a liquid in there, that liquid is not water, so it's kind of thick. So it still retains heat and it takes longer to dissipate. So as the heat comes from the outside, it hits that, heats that up, and then takes longer to get to inside. And there's one guy, he actually has an entire water heater for his house with one Bitcoin miner. It's a big
Wow.
ASIC though. It's like an older big ASIC, and he's like, I'll probably never make a Bitcoin on it. Probably will never mine an actual block with it, but just running it, whether it's on the network or not, just running it heats up all the water he uses in his house.
Wow.
And that, it's an old steam system at that point, you know.
Yeah.
And from there, if you're running steam, you can actually run generators off it. You can create electricity off of your Bitcoin miners. And there's tons of ways to use a Bitcoin miner to help yourself um, live.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can even run a lava lamp.
Yes. Definitely can.
I really enjoyed this episode. You're always a fountain of wisdom, and I'm gonna explore this game more, also with friends. Is there anything more you want to add before we wrap up?
Just grab the IPFS folder, download the stuff, and have fun, because I do have an actual game booklet that has way more information and more ways to play. So if you think that this is the only way you can play, oh no, 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 no. There's probably like 12 ways you can play this game. And your imagination of how you can adapt or use this game for different things is gonna make this game more fun. Because I don't know about you, but some people actually keep 2 dice in their pocket. Like, it's an old habit. I keep rocks in my pocket. But I've met people, they keep 2 dice in their pocket and they go, if I'm unsure about something, I'll just roll the dice. And that's actually what gave me the ideal for this game. So if anything, play Hashrate with your friends at all the tables. Just keep 2 dice in your pocket and then be like, all right, guys, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
And there are like a ton of other cool dice games that you can also play. So always having some dice with you is a smart move, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, Douglas, I want to thank you for being on your own show. I thank you for having me on your show, I should say, and for
Yeah,
sharing.
thank you for joining in with me today, man. I really appreciate you coming on and playing the game with me.
So to everybody watching, I wish you a really good day, and Douglas, I'll see you next time.
Absolutely, bro. So everybody have fun.